The violet crystal dust swirled in the thin atmosphere of Halidia 6 as Commander Zara Thal stood at the observation deck, watching the massive atmospheric scanner towers sweep across the mining colony's terrain. The crystalline structures of the biodomes reflected the purple light of Sigma-9, housing 35,000 Zephyrian citizens beneath them. Their silvery blue skin had adapted well to this remote outpost, far from the Galactic Federation's core systems, where they'd established a peaceful community focused on research and mining. "Commander," Krina Maris called from her communication station, her voice carrying a hint of the mountain militia accent from their homeworld. "Atmospheric readings are normal, but long-range scanners are picking up disturbances at the edge of the system." Zara turned, her posture rigid but her eyes betraying concern. "Define disturbances, Lieutenant." "Energy signatures, ma'am. Large ones. Moving in formation toward Halidia." Krina's fingers danced across the holographic interface, bringing up magnified images on the main screen. "They're not broadcasting any identification codes." The security bunker fell silent as everyone stared at the approaching shapes, black against the stars, moving with military precision. "How many?" Zara asked, her voice dropping an octave. 30 vessels, heavy cruiser class or larger." Engineering Chief Mortex Vel, a veteran Zephyrian with scales showing signs of age, stepped forward. "Commander, I don't recognize those configurations in our Federation database." Zara felt her throat tighten. The Halidia Security Battalion, barely 200 officers equipped with repurposed mining lasers and industrial drills, would be no match for a serious military force. But her duty remained clear: protect the 35,000 civilians who called this crystalline world home. "Sound general alert. Begin civilian evacuation procedures to the underground bunker network, and open a channel to the approaching fleet." As the warning sirens began to wail across the settlement, the main screen flickered to life. The face that appeared belonged to a species Zara had only seen in historical archives, gray-skinned with protruding facial ridges and eyes that seemed to absorb light rather than reflect it. "This is Admiral Crexton of the Voran Empire," the figure announced without preamble. "Your mining colony possesses Vorax crystals, essential to our expansion. You have 48 hours to surrender control of Halidia 6 and evacuate all non-essential personnel. Those who remain may serve the Empire." Zara stood taller. "This is Commander Zara Thal of the Galactic Federation. Halidia 6 is a civilian settlement under Federation protection. Any aggressive action will what, Commander?" Crexton's mouth twisted into what might have been a smile. "Your colony is 3 weeks from the nearest Federation outpost. Your shield technology is rudimentary. Your weapons are mining tools." His voice lowered. "We've studied your defenses thoroughly. When we arrive, you will surrender, or we will reduce your settlement to crystalline dust." The transmission cut, leaving the command center in stunned silence. "Attempt to contact Galactic Federation Command," Zara ordered, turning to Krina. The communications officer's fingers flew across her console. "No response, Commander. They're jamming our long-range communications." On the shield status display, the readout flickered. 100%, 95%. "They're testing our defenses," Mortex said grimly. Zara studied the approach vector of the Voran ships, doubt creeping into her thoughts. "Am I doing the right thing? Or is this the price of possessing resources too valuable to remain unclaimed?" She pushed the thought aside. "Begin evacuation immediately. All 35,000 civilians into the bunker network. Security teams to defensive positions." She paused, watching her officers' faces. "We've trained for this. We hold until help arrives." But in her heart, she wondered if anyone was coming at all. The central plaza of Halidia 6 had become a scene of organized chaos. Zephyrian families moved in streams toward the bunker entrances, carrying only essential belongings. The air tasted of carbon residue from the Voran's probing attacks, making the normally purplish atmosphere appear darker, more ominous. We should stay and negotiate, a voice rose above the crowd. Mining engineer Kelson Urek stood on a supply crate, addressing a gathering of workers. The Voran won't kill us all. They need us to operate the equipment. Zara pushed through the crowd. Engineer Urek, the evacuation order is mandatory. And leave our equipment? Our livelihoods? Kelson gestured to the crystalline mining facilities that stretched to the horizon. These Vorax mines represent generations of work. They represent nothing if we're dead, Zara countered, keeping her voice level despite the frustration building inside her. The bunker network has supplies for months. The Galactic Federation will respond. Will they? An older Zephyrian woman stepped forward. We're on the edge of explored space. Commander, how long before anyone even notices we're under attack? Zara had no reassuring answer, but Lieutenant Krena arrived with a security team. Everyone needs to move now, Krena insisted, her voice firm but compassionate. We've detected Voran fighter craft entering the atmosphere. As if to punctuate her words, a distant boom echoed across the settlement. The shield dome flickered visibly, its yellow-gold energy field rippling under impact. That's the northeast quadrant, Mortex reported through Zara's communicator. Direct hit on a shield generator, holding at 85% integrity, but they're targeting our infrastructure. Kelson's resistance crumbled as another explosion rocked the ground beneath them. Fine, he muttered. But when the Voran strip our minds bare because we abandoned them, don't expect us to thank you. Zara watched as the security team escorted the reluctant miners toward the bunker entrances. Above them, the shield dome flickered again under another barrage. Commander, Krena said quietly as they hurried through the evacuation zones. Engineering reports the shields won't hold more than 2 hours under sustained attack. Zara nodded grimly. Then we make every minute count. The first Voran attack came without warning. 10 sleek fighters dropped from the cloud layer, their engines leaving trails of crimson plasma against the purple sky. They targeted the shield generators with precision, each strike causing the protective dome to flicker more violently. Zara coordinated from the emergency command center, watching as her security forces took positions with their repurposed mining lasers. The golden beams looked almost beautiful as they lanced upward, intersecting with the Voran fighters' red plasma weaponry. Shield integrity at 70%, Mortex reported, his aged hands steady on the controls despite the pressure. I've rerouted emergency power from the mining facilities, but we're operating beyond design capacity. Hold it together, Chief, Zara ordered. We just need to give our people time to reach the bunkers. The command center shuddered as a Voran fighter screamed overhead, its weapons finding a target nearby. Dust sifted from the ceiling. Krena, evacuation status? The lieutenant checked her display. 22,000 in the bunkers, another 8,000 en route. The remaining 5,000 are still being processed from the outer settlements. Zara nodded. And communications? Still jammed. I've tried every frequency, every protocol. They're blocking everything. A deeper rumble shook the building, different from the fighter attacks. Mortex's console flashed warnings. They're targeting the bunker network, he said, voice tense. Deep penetration munitions. They're trying to collapse the tunnels. Zara felt her heart's race. The bunker system extended 1.2 kilometers beneath the surface, designed to withstand mining accidents and natural disasters, not military bombardment. Structural integrity? She asked. Holding, but sections B7 through C3 are reporting dust breaches. Life support remains functional. Through the observation window, Zara watched as her security forces downed another Voran fighter, its sleek form spiraling into the crystalline plane beyond the settlement boundaries. A momentary victory. But the remaining fighters continued their methodical attacks on the shield generators. They're testing us, Zara murmured, measuring our response. Krena looked up from her station. Commander, I'm detecting a new energy signature. One of their capital ships is moving into low orbit. The main screen, showed the massive Voran vessel, its black hull absorbing light rather than reflecting it. As they watched, hatches opened along its ventral surface. "Brace for impact!" Zara shouted, just as the world around them erupted in thunder. 2 days of hyperspace travel, from Halidia 66. The USS Defiant cruised through the star-speckled void. On its bridge, Captain Jake Morrison studied the tactical display with growing concern. "Replay that distress signal," he ordered, his weathered face illuminated by the holographic projections surrounding his command chair. The fractured transmission filled the bridge again. "Under attack. Voran Empire. Civilians. Jamming our communications. Request immediate." Commander Lisa Grant, Morrison's executive officer, leaned forward. "The signal's degraded, but it's definitely from Halidia 6. They're a Federation mining colony, primarily Zephyrian civilians." "Voran," Morrison said, the name tasting bitter on his tongue. He'd seen the aftermath of Voran attacks before. Worlds stripped of resources, populations enslaved or worse. "How far are we from Halidia 6? "At standard speed, 2 days, Grant replied. "If we push the engines—" "We push the engines," Morrison interrupted. He activated the ship-wide communication system. "Engineering, this is the captain. I need everything you've got. Fusion reactors to 110%. Chief Engineer Bobby Torres's voice came back immediately. "Captain, sustaining that output could damage the reactor core. We'd be risking permanent engine damage." "Noted. Chief, do it anyway." Morrison terminated the connection and turned to his bridge crew. "Flight Commander Sullivan, prepare Phoenix Squadron for immediate deployment upon arrival. Dr. Rodriguez, ready your medical teams for potential mass casualties." The tension on the bridge was palpable as each officer acknowledged their orders. "Captain," Grant said quietly, "the Voran typically deploy with overwhelming force. Intelligence suggests they never send fewer than 20 warships on conquest missions." Morrison nodded grimly. "And we're one ship." "One ship against a fleet," Grant agreed. "Those aren't good odds." Morrison stared at the starfield streaking past the viewports as the Defiant's engines strained toward their destination. "When has that ever stopped us before?" he asked. But the question carried the weight of genuine concern. "Can we reach them in time? Can one ship really make a difference?" The bridge fell silent, except for the hum of the straining engines and the occasional status report. Every officer there knew the truth. They were voluntarily heading into what might be a suicide mission. "Moral duty," Grant said finally, breaking the silence. "We protect the innocent, regardless of the odds." Morrison felt a ghost of a smile touch his lips. "Plot the most aggressive course to Halidia 6. Commander, we're going to make the Voran regret their choices." The ship shuddered as the fusion reactors pushed beyond their safety limits, hurling the lone human warship toward a distant world where people had already given up hope of rescue. By the 3rd day of the siege, Halidia 66's main shield was faltering. Zara stood in the underground command center, dust coating her uniform, watching as the shield integrity meter dropped below 35%. "Another direct hit on Generator 6, Mortex reported wearily. The engineering chief hadn't slept in 36 hours. None of them had. "I've got maintenance teams trying to stabilize it, but we're running out of replacement parts." Through the communications network, they could hear the increasing anxiety from the civilian shelters. The Voran bombardment had intensified, targeting the bunker network with deep, penetrating munitions designed to collapse the underground structures. So far, the reinforced tunnels had held, but each impact sent shudders through the entire system. "Casualty report," Zara requested, steeling herself for the numbers. Krenna consulted her tablet. 827 confirmed dead from the initial attacks on the surface facilities. Another 300 missing, presumed buried in the collapsed eastern quadrant. Medical is treating over 2,000 injured. Zara closed her eyes briefly. Each number was a person, someone who had trusted her protection. "Any response to our distress calls?" she asked, though she already knew the answer. Krena shook her head. "The Voran jamming is comprehensive. I've tried piggybacking signals on their own communications, but nothing's getting through." A new alarm sounded, and Mortex's hands flew across his console. "They're changing attack patterns. Multiple capital ships are moving into position directly above the main shield generator." Zara studied the tactical display. The Voran had been methodical, testing their defenses, probing for weaknesses. Now they were preparing for the final assault. "How long will the shields hold?" she asked. Mortex didn't sugarcoat it. 20 minutes. Maybe 30 if we divert all remaining power from life support in the uninhabited sections. "Do it," Zara ordered. She turned to her security chief. "Prepare the remaining defense teams. When the shields fail, the Voran will likely send ground forces to secure the mining facilities." "With what weapons?" Krena asked, frustration evident in her voice. "Our mining lasers are nearly depleted. We have industrial drills and a few plasma cutters. But against Voran combat armor—" "We use what we have," Zara said firmly. "We protect our people until the last moment." A younger officer spoke up from the communication station. "Commander, what if help isn't coming? What if the Federation doesn't even know we're under attack?" The question hung in the air, giving voice to the fear they'd all been harboring. Zara looked around at her exhausted team, at the dust-covered consoles and flickering emergency lights. "Then we make the Voran pay for every meter of ground they take," she said, her voice steady despite the doubt gnawing at her. "We are Halidia's last line of defense. We don't give up while our people still draw breath." But in the privacy of her thoughts, Zara wondered if they were fighting a battle already lost. On the bridge of the USS Defiant, alarms blared as the ship's systems struggled under the strain of prolonged high-speed travel. Fusion reactors at 114%. Torres reported from engineering, his voice tight with concern. "Captain, we're redlining every system. The containment fields are showing microfractures." Morrison gripped the arms of his command chair as the ship shuddered violently. "How long until we reach Halidia 6? 3 hours at current speed," Grant answered, studying the navigation display. "But engineering is reporting we may lose propulsion entirely if we maintain this output." Morrison weighed the options. A disabled ship would help no one, but arriving too late would mean the death or enslavement of 35,000 civilians. "Reduce to 110%, he ordered finally. "No lower. We need to reach that colony before the Voran complete their assault." The ship's shuddering eased marginally as Torres adjusted the power output. "Captain," Sullivan called from the tactical station. "Long-range sensors are detecting weapons fire in the Halidia system. The Voran attack is already underway." Morrison exchanged a grim look with Grant. "Prepare all combat systems. The moment we drop out of hyperspace, I want weapons hot and fighters ready to launch." "Sir," Flight Commander Sullivan said, "my pilots are ready, but we'll be outnumbered at least 5-1, based on intelligence estimates of Voran deployment patterns." "Quality over quantity, Commander," Morrison replied. "Your Phoenix Squadron pilots are the best in the Federation. They'll need to be—" Dr. Rodriguez approached the command platform, his medical kit already strapped across his shoulder. "Captain, my teams are preparing for casualties. But if the situation on Halidia is as bad as we fear—" "Do what you can, Doctor," Morrison said. "Triage protocols. Save those you can." The bridge fell silent again as each officer contemplated what awaited them. The Defiant was a powerful warship, but it was still one vessel against a Voran fleet. "Weapons check," Grant ordered, breaking the silence. "All stations report." "Main twin-beam cannons charged and aligned," came the response from weapons control. "Point defense grid at full capacity. Missile tubes 1 through 60 loaded and locked." Morrison nodded in satisfaction. The Defiant might be outnumbered, but it would arrive with teeth bared. "Approaching Halidia system," the navigation officer announced. "Hyperspace exit in 10 minutes. Morrison straightened in his chair. All hands to battle stations. This won't be pretty, but those people down there are counting on us, even if they don't know it yet. The main shield generator of Halidia 6 failed with a cascading series of explosions that illuminated the purple sky. From her emergency command post, Zara watched as the protective dome flickered and died, leaving the colony exposed to the Varan fleet hovering above. "Evacuation status?" she demanded, fighting to keep her voice steady. 97% complete, Krina reported. The remaining civilians are being moved to the central bunker complex now. Shield is down, Mortex confirmed unnecessarily, his hands still working the controls, attempting to establish localized barriers around the bunker entrances. But power reserves are critical. On the tactical display, Zara could see the Varan ships repositioning. Without the shield to hamper them, they would begin landing ground forces to secure the mining facilities and hunt down any resistance. "Security teams to fallback positions," she ordered. "Priority is protecting the bunker access points. Use the mining tunnels for mobility." As her officers rushed to comply, Zara studied the enemy formation. 23 Voran warships hung in Halidia's sky like predators circling wounded prey. Their black hulls absorbed the purple light of the system's star, making them appear as voids against the atmosphere. "Commander," Krina called suddenly, her voice sharp with surprise. "I'm detecting a new energy signature at the edge of the system. It's massive." Zara hurried to the sensor station. "Another Varan ship?" "No," Krina said, adjusting the controls. "Different configuration entirely. It's moving fast, faster than anything I've ever tracked." The command center fell silent as they watched the new contact accelerate toward Halidia 6. Its energy signature blazed across their sensors like a comet. "Is it Federation?" someone asked, hope creeping into their voice for the first time in days. Zara hardly dared to breathe. "Can you identify it?" Krina's fingers flew across the console. It's a design I've never seen before. 2 kilometers in length, heavily armed, but it's broadcasting on Federation emergency frequencies." The main screen flickered to life, showing the approaching vessel. Unlike the angular, predatory lines of the Varan ships, this craft had a sleek, almost elegant design despite its massive size. Its hull was a deep slate gray, bearing scars from previous battles. "It's hailing," Krina said, incredulous. "Not just us. It's broadcasting to the entire Varan fleet." "Put it through," Zara ordered. A new voice filled the command center, steady and commanding. "This is Captain Jake Morrison of the USS Defiant, Galactic Federation. You are attacking a civilian settlement in violation of interstellar law. Withdraw your forces immediately, or we will be forced to destroy you." Zara felt her heart skip a beat. The voice was unmistakably human, a species she'd only read about in Federation archives. Humans were known for their tenacity, their unpredictability, and their warships. Admiral Crexton's response came immediately, his tone dismissive. "1 ship against my fleet? You'll be destroyed before you can fire a single shot." "That's where you're wrong," Morrison replied calmly. "You have 30 seconds to begin withdrawal procedures." Crexton's laughter echoed through the communication channel. "Your bravery is admirable, Captain, but misplaced. Halidia 6 and its resources now belong to the Varan Empire." The channel closed, and Zara held her breath, watching the tactical display as the lone ship, the Defiant, accelerated toward the Varan fleet. "What can 1 ship do against 23? Mortex murmured. Zara had no answer, but for the first time in days, she felt something other than despair. Hope, however slim, had arrived howling from the void. The USS Defiant dropped out of hyperspace at the edge of the Halidia system, its engines glowing white-hot from the sustained high-speed journey. On the bridge, Morrison surveyed the tactical situation immediately. 23 Varan warships in orbit around Halidia 6, Grant reported. Their shields are active, weapons hot. They're already deploying ground forces. Colony status? Morrison asked. Main defensive shield is down. I'm detecting life signs concentrated underground, likely in bunker complexes. Surface structures show heavy damage. Morrison absorbed the information, formulating a plan. They're not expecting us to attack. They think we're either bluffing or suicidal. He turned to Sullivan. Launch Phoenix Squadron. Target pattern Alpha. Priority on any ships targeting the colony's bunker network. Aye, Captain, Sullivan responded, relaying the orders to her pilots. Throughout the massive ship, launch bays opened as 12 T-Falcon fighters prepared for deployment. Each craft, though small compared to the capital ships they would face, carried weapon systems specifically designed to penetrate Varan defenses. Weapons control. Charge main cannons, Morrison ordered. Point defense grid to automatic tracking. We're going straight for their flagship. Sir, Grant cautioned, that's the heaviest concentration of their fleet. Exactly, Morrison replied. They won't expect it. The Varan rely on intimidation and overwhelming force. They're not prepared for an opponent who doesn't fear them. The Defiant accelerated toward the Varan fleet, its weapon systems powering to full capacity. As they closed distance, the first Varan ships broke formation, turning to intercept the lone Federation vessel. Incoming fire, Tactical announced. Multiple plasma torpedoes, bearing 035. Evasive pattern Delta, Morrison ordered calmly. Point defense. Engage. The Defiant banked sharply, its laser turrets tracking like angry hornets as they intercepted the incoming torpedoes. Brilliant explosions lit up space around the ship as most of the projectiles were destroyed. Two slipped through, impacting against the Defiant's forward shields. Shields holding at 92%, Grant reported. Minimal damage. Return fire, Morrison commanded. Target their lead interceptors. The Defiant's secondary weapon arrays unleashed a barrage of precision fire, slicing through the first Varan ship's engines. The enemy vessel spun out of control, its reactor core destabilizing before erupting in a sphere of blue-white energy. Phoenix Squadron deployed, Sullivan announced, engaging Varan fighters. On the tactical display, Morrison watched as his fighter squadrons engaged the enemy. The T-Falcons moved with incredible agility, dodging the heavier Varan ships while targeting their vulnerable propulsion systems. Captain, Grant said urgently, 3 Varan cruisers are repositioning to target the colony's bunker network. They're preparing to fire deep penetration munitions. Morrison's expression hardened. Intercept course, maximum thrust. Target those ships specifically. The Defiant surged forward, its engines straining as it positioned itself between the vulnerable colony and the Varan attack group. The enemy ships, surprised by the aggressive maneuver, scattered briefly before regrouping. They're concentrating fire, Tactical warned. Multiple weapons locks. Brace for impact, Morrison ordered. The Varan cruisers fired simultaneously, their crimson energy beams converging on the Defiant's shields. The ship shuddered violently under the assault. Shields at 68%, Grant reported. Still holding. Morrison leaned forward in his command chair. Now it's our turn. Main cannons. Fire when ready. The twin particle beam cannons mounted on the Defiant's forward section powered to full capacity, drawing energy directly from the straining fusion reactors. When they fired, twin streams of blindingly bright energy lanced out, cutting through space like surgical instruments. The lead Varan cruiser's shields flared brilliantly as they attempted to disperse the energy, and failed. The beams sliced through the ship's command section, severing it completely from the main hull. Secondary explosions rippled along its length as systems failed catastrophically. Direct hit, Tactical confirmed. Target neutralized. Morrison allowed himself a grim smile. Let's show them what one ship can do. All weapons. Continuous fire. Push toward their flagship. The Defiant accelerated again, its weapon systems blazing as it carved a path through the Varan fleet. In the underground command center of Helidius 6, Zara and her team watched in astonishment as the battle unfolded in orbit above them. "That's impossible," Mortex whispered, staring at the tactical display. "One ship taking on the entire Varan fleet?" Yet the evidence was undeniable. The Federation vessel, this Defiant, was cutting through the Voran formation with shocking effectiveness. Its smaller fighter craft swarmed like insects, targeting engines and weapon systems with precision strikes. "The Voran are breaking formation," Krena reported, her voice rising with excitement. "3 of their ships are already disabled. 2 more are attempting to retreat." Zara could hardly believe what she was seeing. After days of relentless bombardment, after accepting that help might never come, a single warship had arrived and was turning the tide of battle. "What species commands that vessel?" she asked. Krena checked the communication logs. "Humans." The captain identified himself as human. Humans. Zara had studied them in academy. A relatively new addition to the Galactic Federation, known for their adaptability, their unpredictable tactics, and their fierce protection of what they considered just. "They're targeting the Voran flagship," Mortex noted, pointing to the tactical display. Indeed, the Defiant was pushing through the enemy formation, absorbing fire from multiple directions, while maintaining its course toward Admiral Crexton's command vessel. A new alarm sounded, and Krena's expression shifted to concern. "Commander, Voran ground forces have breached perimeter defenses. They're approaching bunker access point 3. Zara snapped back to the immediate threat. "Security teams to intercept. Use the mining tunnels for flanking positions." She activated her communicator. "All civilians, move to interior shelters. Seal the blast doors." Even as she issued the orders, part of her attention remained fixed on the battle overhead. The Defiant was taking heavy fire now, its shields visibly flickering under the combined assault of multiple Voran ships. "Can they survive that?" someone asked. Zara had no answer. But as she watched, the human vessel executed a maneuver that seemed to defy physics, spinning along its axis while maintaining forward momentum. The move allowed its main cannons to target a Voran cruiser that had attempted to attack from behind, slicing through its weapon arrays in a single devastating shot. "They fight like nothing I've ever seen," Mortex murmured. In that moment, Zara allowed herself to believe that perhaps, just perhaps, they might survive this after all. On the bridge of the Defiant, chaos reigned. Consoles sparked from power surges. Emergency lights pulsed, and the ship groaned under the strain of combat maneuvers it had never been designed to perform. "Shields at 41%, Grant reported, wiping blood from a cut on her forehead. "Hull breaches on decks 12 through 15. Repair teams responding." "Phoenix Squadron reports 6 confirmed kills," Sullivan added. "But we've lost 3 fighters. The rest are running low on ammunition." Morrison absorbed the information, his mind racing through options. The Defiant had inflicted significant damage on the Voran fleet, but they were still outnumbered, and their primary target, Admiral Crexton's flagship, remained protected by a screen of escort vessels. "Engineering, status report," he called. "Fusion reactors at 116%, Torres responded, his voice strained. "Captain, we can't maintain this output much longer. The containment fields are destabilizing." "We need 5 more minutes at full power," Morrison said. "Can you give me that, Chief?" A pause. "Yes, sir. But after that, I'll have to initiate emergency shutdown or risk a core breach." "Understood." Morrison turned to Grant. "Adjust course. We're going straight for Crexton's flagship." "Sir, that's the heaviest concentration of their fleet," Grant cautioned. "Our shields won't hold against that much firepower." "We don't need them to hold for long," Morrison replied. "Just long enough for a clean shot with the main cannons." The executive officer hesitated, then nodded. "Adjusting course. All power to forward shields." The Defiant banked sharply, accelerating toward the center of the Voran formation, where Admiral Crexton's massive flagship hovered. Immediately, The enemy vessels concentrated their fire, crimson energy beams converging on the human warship from multiple angles. "Shields at 32%, 25%, Grant called out, tension evident in her voice. The ship shuddered violently as a plasma torpedo slipped through the weakening defenses, detonating against the hull. "Hull breach! Deck 9!" someone shouted. "Emergency bulkheads engaged!" "Distance to target?" Morrison demanded. 8,000 kilometers in closing, Tactical responded. "Within main cannon range in 30 seconds. Another hit rocked the ship. "Shields at 18%! Morrison gripped the arms of his command chair, refusing to flinch as systems failed around him. "Stay on target. Divert all non-essential power to weapons." "Captain," Grant warned, "our shields are failing. One more direct hit and—" "We only need one shot," Morrison interrupted. "Main cannons. Prepare to fire on my mark. Target their command center." The distance closed rapidly as the Defiant pushed through the storm of enemy fire, its hull now taking direct hits as the shields flickered and failed in sections. "In range," Tactical announced. "Fire!" The Defiant's twin particle beam cannons discharged simultaneously, drawing so much power that the bridge lights dimmed momentarily. Two blindingly bright streams of energy lanced out, converging as they struck the Varan flagship's shields. For a moment, it seemed the enemy defenses would hold. Then the beams punched through, cutting directly into the massive vessel's command section. The effect was catastrophic. The concentrated energy severed power conduits and breached the atmospheric containment, creating a chain reaction that rippled through the ship's structure. "Direct hit on their command center," Tactical confirmed, unable to keep the awe from his voice. On the main view screen, they watched as the Voran flagship's midsection erupted in a series of explosions, tearing the massive vessel apart from within. Admiral Crexton's command ship split along its spine, secondary detonations flowering along its length as critical systems failed. "Enemy flagship neutralized," Grant reported, a hint of disbelief in her tone. The effect on the remaining Voran vessels was immediate and dramatic. Without central command, their formation disintegrated. Some continued to fire, but their attacks were uncoordinated. Others began to retreat, turning away from the battle. "Phoenix Squadron, target their engines," Morrison ordered. "Disable. Don't destroy. I want prisoners to stand trial for what they've done here." As the human fighters swarmed the retreating Varan ships, Morrison allowed himself to relax marginally in his chair. "Damage report. Multiple hull breaches, contained by emergency systems," Grant replied. "Shields at 12% and regenerating slowly. Main cannons offline. The power surge damaged their alignment systems." "Casualties?" 27 confirmed dead, 43 injured, 8 critically. Dr. Rodriguez is treating them now." Morrison nodded grimly. Each loss weighed heavily, but they had prevented a far greater tragedy. "Open a channel to the colony," he ordered. In the underground command center of Halidia 6, a stunned silence had fallen as they watched the Varan flagship tear itself apart under the Defiant's attack. Then, gradually, the realization spread. They had won. The impossible had happened. "Commander," Krena called, her voice trembling with emotion. "The Defiant is hailing us." Zara stepped forward. "Put it through!" The main screen flickered, revealing the bridge of the human warship. Captain Morrison sat in the center, his uniform bearing scorch marks, a small cut visible on his cheek. Behind him, his crew worked frantically at damaged stations. "Commander Thal," Morrison greeted her. "USS Defiant responding to your distress call. Apologies for the delay." Zara found herself momentarily speechless. After days of siege, of watching her people die, of believing no help would come, to see this human captain speaking so calmly, as if arriving to save them, had been a simple matter. "Captain Morrison," she finally managed, "your arrival was timely. We had begun to believe no one would come." A ghost of a smile touched Morrison's lips. The Galactic Federation doesn't abandon its people, Commander. Not even those on its farthest frontiers. The Varan ground forces, Zara began, are being contained, Morrison assured her. We've deployed Marine units to secure the surface. My chief medical officer, Dr. Rodriguez, is establishing field hospitals for your wounded. Zara nodded, relief washing through her in waves. Our casualties are significant. Over 2,000 wounded, and, her voice caught briefly, at least 2,300 dead. Morrison's expression sobered. Each loss is a tragedy, but without your leadership, it could have been much worse. You kept your people alive until we could reach you. Krena approached, unable to contain herself. How did you do it? One ship against their entire fleet? The human captain exchanged glances with his executive officer. The Varan rely on fear and overwhelming force. They weren't prepared for an opponent who refused to be intimidated. He paused. And, frankly, they underestimated Federation engineering. The Defiant is resilient. As are your people, Zara said quietly. We won't forget what you've done here today. Captain. Morrison nodded. We'll remain in orbit until Federation relief ships arrive. My engineering teams are already working to restore your shield generators and power grid. The communication ended, and Zara turned to her team. Their exhausted faces now showed something she hadn't seen in days. Hope. Begin surface recovery operations, she ordered. Coordinate with the Defiance teams. Let's bring our people home. 2 weeks later, Zara stood in what remained of Halidia 6, Central Plaza, watching as civilians and Federation personnel worked together to clear debris and rebuild structures. The shield generators had been restored to 80% capacity, providing a reassuring golden dome overhead once more. The Voran fleet was gone. Those ships not destroyed had been captured by Federation forces that arrived 3 days after the Defiant. Admiral Crexton's surviving officers were in custody, awaiting trial for war crimes against a civilian population. Commander Thal. Zara turned to find Captain Morrison approaching, looking more rested than when she'd first met him. The cut on his cheek had healed, leaving a faint scar. Captain, she greeted him. I heard the Defiance repairs are complete. Morrison nodded. We'll be departing tomorrow. Federation Command has assigned a permanent defense squadron to Halidia 6. You won't be left vulnerable again. They walked together through the reconstruction zone. Zephyrians and humans, working side by side to rebuild what had been destroyed. Your people are remarkably resilient, Morrison observed. 2 weeks ago, this place was in ruins. We've had help, Zara replied, gesturing to a group of human engineers assisting with a damaged atmospheric processor. Your crew has been instructive. Cultural exchange is one of the Federation's founding principles, Morrison said with a slight smile, though usually it happens under less dramatic circumstances. They reached a viewing platform overlooking the vast Vorax crystal fields that had made Halidia 6 so valuable and so vulnerable. The purple-tinged crystals caught the light, creating an almost ethereal landscape. The Galactic Council is reviewing security protocols for all frontier colonies, Morrison said after a moment. What happened here won't happen again. Can you be certain? Zara asked. The galaxy is vast. The Federation's resources are stretched thin. Morrison considered this. No, I can't be certain, but I can promise you this. Wherever there are those who would prey on the innocent, there will be those who stand against them. He looked up at the sky, where the Defiant orbited invisibly above. Sometimes help arrives in unexpected forms. Zara followed his gaze. From the void. Exactly. Morrison extended his hand in the human gesture of farewell. It's been an honor, Commander Thal. Zara clasped his hand, adopting the human custom. The honor is ours, Captain. Safe journey. Later that evening, Zara stood at the observation deck once more, watching as the USS Defiant broke orbit, its engines glowing bright against the darkness of space. On the communications channel, Captain Morrison's final message played. Remember, in the darkest hour, when it seems no help is coming, listen for the howl from the void. Humanity will answer. The massive warship accelerated, becoming a streak of light that vanished into the distance, bound for another corner of the galaxy, where, perhaps, another civilization waited for salvation. Zara turned to the rebuilt command center, where her team awaited. There was still much work to be done, a colony to rebuild, a future to secure. But now, they worked with the knowledge that they were not alone in the vastness of space. Help would always come, howling from the void.